Really happy to be here, and I recognize some faces out there, and you probably have seen me around doing assorted stuff. And I will tell you, the hair changes color occasionally. The great part about it turning white is now I can make it any color I want. So tonight I'm just coming to talk to you guys a little bit about foraging for things in your backyard. As grocery costs have skyrocketed the last couple of years, foraging for native plants as well as whatever happens to be coming up in your neighborhood has become extremely popular. If any of you guys are on TikTok, YouTube, Clapper, any of those types of social media platforms, there's all kinds of people out there telling you what you can and cannot eat. Well, that's great, but not all of them are in your backyard, or my backyard, or the next door neighbor's backyard, or anything of that sort. So I'm just gonna go through some things that are in my backyard that are pretty common. I like to call them gifts from the birds. And the squirrel, well, I don't really have squirrels, I have a dog. But you know, things, they travel, they migrate. We know this just if you've ever tried to grow yarrow in a pot, that stuff's gonna jump out and grow where it wants. It does not care where you put it. And some of these things have traveled around the globe, whether we like it or not, and now we have them. So, without further ado, we'll give this a little tap. So we're all familiar with the things that we plant on purpose. We have, of course, a wonderful wide range of plants in the mint family. In my backyard, I have spearmint and oregano, of course, and they're usually bumper crops. They go crazy up here. They really like the hard clay, crappy soil we have. But what's also in the mint family is this guy, and this is purple deadhead nettles. Now, I used to fight with this, something fierce. Now I just embrace it. Wherever it comes up, I work with it. The dead giveaway on purple deadhead nettles, of course, the mint family, so it's going to have a squarish stem. I don't think you can see it so great in this picture unless you're a little closer. But if you rip off the stem and you look at a cross section, that guy's square and it's hollow in the middle. Also, if you take a little bit of the leaf off and taste it or rub it, it has just a super faint mint smell to it, kind of similar to catmint. It is fuzzy, the leaves kind of hang down, and it has these little flowers around. Now, if you blow this up, which I have a couple of times on social media posts, they kind of look like teeny tiny orchids. They're super pretty when you really get down and look at them. A lot of people detest these, terribly so. They screw up their nice, pretty lawns. I do not spray my yard with anything, so I should say that if you're going to be gathering, you don't want to gather anywhere that has been treated with any chemical pesticides. It is my personal choice not to gather anywhere that's been treated with a chemical or synthetically derived fertilizer. So, my backyard, it's all natural back there, dude. So, but this one is a great plant to add into foods if you want just a hint of mint, not a lot. It is one of the first plants up in the spring, so the bees love it. I like to add it into pestos because it gives just a little bit of a balanced flavor and kind of takes the edge off of some really harsh garlic. It's 100% edible. It's very high in iron. With most greens, the only real side effect is, of course, you know, if you eat too much of it, you're gonna be running. Medicinally, it is usually used topically. You can use it internally, but it's considered something to soothe, right? So I use this, I make an infused oil, and I make a balm out of this along with comfrey, wild violet leaves, which is also one of those in the backyard. What else is in it? Plantain, and yeah, those are the four. And it's a very nice balm to soothe super irritated skin. So deadhead nettles, definitely one to keep around. Its cousin, creeping Charlie, or creeping ground ivy, whatever you want to call it. I help admin an herbal information page on Facebook. You want to see all of the hateful people come out at once, post a picture of this, and say that it's good stuff. People feel very strongly about this. It can be invasive. This is the one that grows almost like a creeping mat across your yards. It will grow up over your flowers, over your flower beds, all of that. It is very hard to eradicate. However, it's completely edible. Medicinally, it's been noted in some herbals to be used as a lymphatic drainage remedy. So think stuffy ears, stuffy throat, can't quite get that goo to drain. That's when you might want to consider something like Creeping Charlie. All of these, of course, are barring that you do not have an allergy to it. You know, as with everything, use caution, common sense. But this one too is one of the first plants out for the bees. And I personally really like Creeping Charlie. I think it's pretty when it stays in its lane. You know, we have our battles and fights in that backyard, but we get her done. Another cousin in the mint family is henbit. And there was a little teeny tiny one in the flower bed up here. Now henbit looks very similar to Creeping Charlie and to deadhead nettles, and a lot of people call all of them one or the other names, but they are a little different in nutritional content. Henbit is usually referred to by that name because chickens really like it. So if you have chickens or jumbo quail or something like that in your backyard, just pick that stuff off and throw it in for it. Henbit is completely edible and has similar uses to deadhead nettle. We all know this guy, dandelions, dent de leon. In some places they call it piscilent or piss the bed. It's definitely a hint as to its medicinal actions. Traditionally, it's been used as a diuretic. Oh look, there's henbit growing next to my dandelions. Can definitely tell I don't spray in my yard. Dandelions are 100% edible. I literally, as soon as they pop up in the spring, like I'm chomping at the bit, ready for those dandelions to come up. We use the spring greens, usually before it hits about 70, 75. That's my own personal preference. The leaves are very, very tender first thing in the spring, and I use them interchangeably with spinach. The nice part is some people cannot eat spinach because of the high oxalic acid content. Dandelion doesn't have that. So there's an option for you. When I was little, my grandpa lived through the Depression, you know, and he grew up in a French family out by Frenchtown, and they used to cook up the dandelion greens. So we would have cooked dandelion greens. The flower, of course, is completely edible. If any of you guys see me on social media channels, there's a couple videos of me frying them. So you can double dip them and fry them up, and they taste just like a deep fried mushroom. I'm sure everyone's heard of dandelion wine. You can use any part of the dandelion to get your initial fluid to make a dandelion wine. You can also make dandelion homebrew, which is like a beer, and it only takes 2 weeks. So if you are super short on attention, might be an option. But the more heads or flowers that you have in it, the sweeter it is. So if you want it a little more bitter, you throw in more leaves. You want it more sweet, you throw in more flowers. The stems are edible, although not exactly palatable, right? They're what's called a bitter. So if you want bile to flow, bitter herbs make that happen. So they kind of stimulate the juices for digestion. So the stems will make that happen, but anybody who's had a kid, when you stick that stem in your mouth as a kid, you know, just... The roots, which are generally gathered in the fall, can be eaten just like a carrot. You can scrub them up, roast them with your roast. Some people dry them, or they'll roast them as they dry, and they'll grind them up and use them as an additive with their coffee. The cool part is there are a ton of actual scientific studies done on dandelion. The roots contain a substance called inulin, which is a beneficial fiber that they say it acts like insulin, but that's not actually how it works. But it's a beneficial fiber that acts as a prebiotic, and it helps a lot of people who may have mild blood sugar disturbances. But I do encourage you to look that up because, you know, I'm not here to tell anybody medicinally. That is, it is your prerogative, your choice as to what you do with your own health, but adding dandelion in is not a bad idea. It really is a super dude. I love dandelions. Plus, I mean, come on, who doesn't want a yard full of pretty yellow flowers? This one, lamb's quarter, that picture is better. This one tends to come up willy-nilly. You can fight this all you want, but if you start working with it, I guarantee you won't find enough anymore. Lamb's quarter, also known as goosefoot, there's a couple other names for it. It's very high in your ACE. It's high in iron. It can be used just like your spinaches, your other greens. You can eat it fresh. I do suggest the smaller ones if you're going to eat it fresh, because the larger the leaf, the more kind of leathery it gets. But this is something that I throw in all the time at home, and my kids have no idea what they're eating. I don't tell them. They probably would freak out. This one is one, these guys, I could not believe that people really hate these things. I don't know why. I think they're like little woodland fairy friends, you know? So wild violets are super healing. Say you're walking in the woods, and a lot of our woods around here are not like big forests or anything. So we have a lot of spots where the sun gets through on a filtered light. So we'll end up with a lot of wild violets. Now they grow, they spread from the root. So you'll see a little clump, and then they'll travel over and you see another little clump. The leaves can be used to soothe skin irritations as well. So that balm that I told you guys about, I put wild violet leaves in the oil when I infuse it. All of this plant is edible. However, the flowers are a little sweet. And last week I just got done making my second batch of wild violet jelly. If you're a baker and you want to incorporate a little bit of nature or woodland into your baking products, you can take these, kind of let them lay out on a paper towel, rinse them, lay them on a paper towel, and then you dip them in egg white and roll them in sugar. And they can be used as decorations, that type of thing, and they're totally edible. You don't have to pull them back off. They're not going to hurt anyone. So yeah, wild violet is great. I actually was hiking in Hocking Hills last year, and it was right before the rain, and I was getting eaten alive, you know, and so I stopped and grabbed some wild violet, kind of gave it a little rub between my hands and rubbed it on to get rid of the itch. I had another lady say, "Where did you get that? What is that?" Come here, let's take a look. This one is another one that used to be the bane of my existence, common mallow. This would be right up there when you go, say you go to a health food store and you see marshmallow. That's not the fluffy, sugary Jell-O kind, but it's a relative of these guys. They grow a lot around here, especially if you have super hard clay soil that holds a lot of moisture. Normally, they're about this tall, max, because I tend to forget things in my backyard. I had one grow this high. They get a little woody when they get that high. However, the flowers can be added to salads. The leaves I have diced up and put in with like chicken, shredded chicken, that kind of stuff, because they do tend to get thick. It's what's called a mucilage. So a mucilage is something that when you have a dried powder of it and you add a little bit of water or fluid to it and you mix it up, it turns into a slimy, snotty-like substance. So it's going to soothe and coat. But it will not quite as efficient as cornstarch, but it will do the kind of that sort of job where it'll thicken things up. So if you want to put a little bit of vitamin and mineral content into your food and get a little thickener action while you're at it, you may want to give it a try. The salad, the flowers I'll pull off and I'll add those to my salad. They kind of have a little bit of a, not quite a cucumber-y taste, but they're pretty decent. So chicory, which will not be out until middle to late summer, this guy is super pretty. I wish I could preserve these. They always close by noon and then you're out of luck. Chicory flowers are totally edible. The stems are edible, although also one of those things that aren't exactly palatable because it's like chewing on a piece of wood. The roots for chicory can be harvested late summer into fall, and a lot of times they dry roast those. They can grind them up, and they use it in coffee. So if any of you guys have ever had chock full of nuts coffee, it doesn't have nuts in it, it has chicory root in it, which also has that inulin fiber in it. Burdock, which I can't remember if I added that guy in here, burdock also has inulin fibers in the roots, and that is a fun one to try to get the root off of because they grow deep and long and you'll be digging a while, but they can be used in that way too. Queen Anne's lace is another one that comes up later. It's not even remotely up now. But remember what the flowers look like. When I was a kid, I used to ride my bicycle up and down the street because we didn't have the interwebs and we lived in the country, didn't have cable. So we would pick these and cut them and put them in the little vases with food coloring, and they'd turn all kinds of colors. It was something to do. But these guys, they are wild carrots. You can eat the root just like a carrot. They're smaller usually, unless you get a real big guy, but that's not real common around here. They'll be about anywhere from the size of my pinky to maybe as big around as my thumb. They do taste very much like carrots. Medicinally, it is what is called a vermifuge, which means it gets rid of vermin. So think like wormer. So hey, get rid of any unfriendlies and have some carrots. One thing that I always do throw in is that sometimes these plants have other plants that look similar that are not what you want to be eating. So I do tell people, make sure you have a good field guide, make sure you have it. With smartphones, there are a lot of apps on your phones. If you are unsure, use that. If you are still unsure, just don't eat it. Always err on the side of caution. And the one that I like to bring up is how people will say, don't eat this, and then they'll say the same thing about yarrow. Don't use it, don't eat it, you don't know what it is, that's hemlock. There's some big differences. So over here on this side are all the hemlock characteristics. This time of year, this is water hemlock, which that's not a good picture of the leaves, but hemlock is coming up already. I was digging out little tiny starts in my flower beds in February. I dig them out, I lay them on my driveway, throw vinegar on them, and then I throw vinegar all over the exposed dirt as well, just to try to kill any roots. This stuff, it's the hogweed that grows super high. If you see those blotches on the stalks, it is best to err on the side of caution. Some people really get terrible contact dermatitis and infections from it. Wear some gloves, appropriate clothing, dig that stuff up, get rid of it. This is poisonous, and it is a very slow dysentery-like death. So, gotta stay away from that. The flowers will have, while it looks similar to Queen Anne's lace, like up by that red arrow, you can see how the plants start like a little bird nest and they open up, and usually it is one flower on one stalk that grows flat across the top, and a lot of times it'll have a little purple heart. Once in a while the purple heart's missing out of the middle, the one little purple flowerette. These guys, you see how each one has multiple stalks coming off, and they have these little tiny clumps and clusters. I was driving to Greenville last year, like first week of June. So these guys are going to be flowering out real soon if they've made it. They're down St. Mary's Greenville Road, it was just covered. And in Yorkshire too, I'm from out in Egypt originally, and so that's like home territory. But all along the one creek that goes back to Mendenhall Cemetery is loaded with this stuff. And like with anything, it gets on dogs' fur. Birds can eat it and nothing happens to them. You know, it travels with the animals, with water, with the wind. So just stay away from this guy. You want to make sure that this one is gone out of your yard. A whole lot of people just get that confused. And now we have blank slide. There we go. This one too comes up in middle to late fall, or middle to late summer into fall. This is purslane. I'm trying to think. On the big picture, the one on the right looks a little better. So if you guys ever had it, it likes to grow in the cracks of sidewalks and hard dirt. I mean, pretty much just around here, hard clay-like soil. It looks like a succulent, almost like your jade plants, and it has usually a pinkish, reddish brown stem to it. Creep stays a little lower to the ground. It will grow up a little high. It can bloom in Texas and down south. There are some places where they sell flowering purslanes, and they're beautiful. We don't have those just sprouting up around here, but you can get them for your gardens. Purslane is edible. It's full of good omega fatty acids. If you are a fan of international cuisine, Turkish cuisine and some Middle Eastern dishes use purslane in stews. They cook it down with lentils. I use it all the time. Has a little bit of a lemongrass flavor to it. Oh, there's a better pic. Well, it's not great in focus on this one, but you can get the idea. They're real thick leaves, and they grow. Usually they're about 1/8 to a 1/2 inch long. Pretty nice, decent leaves. And I don't know whether, okay, my slides are a little out of order, but that's okay, we'll get to it. Plantain, you guys know what this guy is. They call it white man's foot. So the Native Americans used to call it white man's foot because it didn't exist here before they came. And it grew up everywhere a white man's foot touched. So, this is a cousin to the kind of plantain that they make Metamucil out of, right? So the plantains that we have here are way too small for the type of harvest that because Metamucil is pretty big biz, right? But then what they do is those kind have these gigantic seed stalks on them. They're way bigger plants than this. And then they harvest those and they hull them, and that's what's in there. It's the seed hulls that you're taking for your fibers. So it's a little bit of good soluble and insoluble fibers. The leaves are 100% edible. They are a little leathery. The larger they are, the little tougher to chew. But these are very soothing. They're another one that's in that balm for topical. It's another one where if you're walking through the woods and you're getting bit up by bugs, smash it up, rub it on, takes care of it. And that is the end. Well, make sure I'm not missing a slide. I was going to show you guys, I had a slide on the, where's it at? Well, for some reason, there it is, this one. Okay, on the purslane, it has a look-alike. This one is purslane, and the one next to it is spurge. Spurge is poisonous. Don't eat the spurge. Eat the purslane, don't eat the spurge. So purslane's going to have your thicker, more succulent-like leaves, like a jade plant almost. These guys, the leaf is paper thin. This one, you see how they come up opposite of each other, well, not opposite, alternate of each other. These shoot off opposite directly from each other. They're a little more symmetrical on the stem. They grow flat to the ground. If you break that stem and it oozes a little bit of white sap, that's spurge. Don't eat the spurge. Spurge is bad, plantain's good. Or purslane's good. So, yeah. There are two others that will be coming up soon that I did pull up on Google that I should have added. This one is up right now. This is chickweed. If you ever go out to pull it, it kind of creeps through your flower bed. You go to pull it, and it's almost like the leaves pop in your hands, and they're wet. You can eat this just like watercress. It's actually really, really good. I like it a lot. And right now it is taking over my one flower bed. We'll have a discussion about that when I get home later. But in the meantime, I've been getting a lot of it. Medicinally, they say that chickweed mobilizes fat. And another one that will be coming up very soon in every sidewalk crack near you is wood sorrel. Kind of looks like a little shamrock, yellow flowers. You can eat it, tastes a little sour, don't eat a lot. It is a little high in oxalic acid. So, yeah. I guess this is the part where I ask if anybody has any questions. And, yeah.
If your yard is treated, how long do you have to wait to not treat it and then,
You have to check with your lawn care company because a lot of those are time release things. The last time I talked to anybody with lawn care companies, they said 2 years from the last date of treatment. But I am not an expert at lawn care chemicals, because I don't use them, so I don't know. But it is a good rule of thumb to check with your lawn care company and just double check. If
It's
they,
just a Scott's bag.
well, I don't, read the label, it'll tell
Go
you.
to Scott's and ask.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be a good one, like Scotts.com. That'd be a good one to ask them.
Would you, please allow me, for the sake of time, to help me thank Lori for joining us tonight? And I understand you may have questions, but we're really rude around here, so go see Lori over to the side if you have a question. Hopefully you'll stay with us.
Mhm.
Okay, so she'll stay with us. Did you get your name in the bucket?
Should I put my name in?
Oh, you should.
Okay, put my name in.
Anybody? Last call. Last